Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earthing Live, where we answer your questions live right here on the webinar. Before we get started, I just want to give you all a quick reminder that the information you hear in this webinar is not medical advice, and it's not meant to replace any advice you've received from your healthcare professional. So definitely check in with them before you start making any changes to any of your health regimes or anything that you have questions on health related. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I am joined here today with Mr. Clint Ober. We have been coming on once a week here on Mondays at 3:30 p.m., 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time to answer your questions. You can submit your questions through the Q&A section of this webinar. So for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, there is a little box, should be at the bottom, that says Q&A, and that's where you can put your questions. That is the section I am monitoring. If you put anything in the chat section, I will not see it. So we will often put notes and links in the chat section if Clint references any studies or anything that you might need a link to. So we'll put that in the chat section, but if you want to get a question to me, use the Q&A section. So we are now streaming this webinar on YouTube and Facebook. So welcome YouTubers and Facebookers. You unfortunately cannot submit questions through those platforms. If you go to earthing.com, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that's where you will get all of the links to join these webinars via Zoom, and then you can ask your questions directly. As always, our customer service department is here helping. If you ask a question, you might hear from them. It doesn't mean that we won't ask your question live, though. For any other general customer service questions, to track an order, if you need to if you need help placing an order, anything like that, go ahead and reach out to us at help@earthing.com. You can also on earthing.com find our phone number. You can live chat us. We have a very good customer service team that's out there. And don't forget, in honor of Earth Day, we have our Earth Day special, which is 10% off your first order. If you, again, are a member of our newsletter blast, then you will be able to receive a coupon code to get 10% off your first order in the month of April. And in honor of Mother's Day, we also have a Mother's Day sale going on. So just be sure to head over to earthing.com and you can find out all this information. A lot going on this month. So now I'd like to introduce Mr. Clint Ober. He's our founder and CEO over here at earthing.com. He is responsible for trying to get the word of earthing out there to all the people in the world. And he works every single day to spread the word, to improve products, to increase the longevity and safety of our products. So he's been featured in 2 documentaries. He is co-author of the book Earthing. And before I say welcome, Clint, I'm going to have you take your microphone off mute. I can see that you're muted. We'll get your sound going. There we go. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you.
All right. We've this is our 3rd one, and I think we're going good here.
Yes, it seems to work.
Yeah, people seem to be responding to it. So we already have 10 questions in the queue, so I'm just going to get started, and okay. We'll go from there.
Very good.
All right. So do you recommend using a heating pad while using the sleep mat? This particular person, Aline, she has back pain, and so she's wondering if she can use the heating pad.
I don't know of any reason you couldn't use the heating pad, except that I would put the heating pad, but you're blocking the grounding if you have a heating pad between yourself and the mat. But there's no technical reason other than you'd want to keep the cord, the electrical cord of the heating pad away from your body as much as possible. The heating pad itself is fine.
Okay. Catherine has asked, Does being grounded protect us from EMFs and 5G?
Okay. EMF, the reason that in the communications industry and cable industry and all the industries that I was around was, the reason we use grounding in the first place is to reduce EMI, electromagnetic interference. And you do that two ways. One is you use shielding for high frequency, and then grounding alone is really effective for low frequency. And EMF is, extremely low. ELF, I don't want to get into the tech of it, but EMF, 60 hertz EMF in your home is low frequency, and it is pretty much automatically neutralized when you are grounded on the body. 5G, that's a whole different issue. There's not really any way you can protect yourself from 5G. It's like wherever you go, if you can go in a building and use your cell phone, you can go in a basement, use your cell phone. Anywhere you can crawl in a microwave, you can probably still use your cell phone today. But unless you are in a Faraday cage, completely shielded, there's no way you can shield yourself from 5G. So it's, on the other hand, a lot of people are really, really concerned about 5G, but it's one thing I've told people many years back, everybody was afraid of the cell phones back 20 years ago because everybody was going to get brain cancer and all of the problems that were going to come with it. Well, and I told them back then, I said, you're going to have 10 times as many cell phones in 10 years or towers as you have today, 20 years ago. And I said, the reason is because the more cell towers you have, the less power they have to put in the antennas and the wattage, and so you can have lower wattages with closer proximity and the use of phones. And in order to use 5G, I mean, to have all of the video and all of the things that we like on our cell phones, and you just have to have more bandwidth. The only way, this is how you're going to get more bandwidth. There's going to be a 6G, a 7G, and 8G. They're just going to come in time, but it's trying to get the signal closer to the user without causing heating effects and all of the things that everybody's worried about. The industry is fully aware of all of these issues, but I'm not speaking for the industry. I'm retired from that industry 25 years ago. So anyhow, but the point is, the concerns are grounding is going to protect you from your EMF. Those are the ones that you should think more about, because it's in all the wiring in your walls. Every electrical cord in your environment radiates an EMF. On the other hand, we don't know that that's really the cause of any particular health disorder, but it's certainly easy to protect from when you're grounded.
All right. Loretta has asked, how many layers of clothing can be worn when using the relaxation chair without using conductivity? And this what your answer, I know, it's not just for the relaxation chair, it's really all of our products and wearing clothing.
The relaxation chair, is that like the
foldable chair?
The foldable, okay.
The meditation.
If you're sitting on it in blue jeans, after just a short period of time, you're going to be grounded. If you have a sweater on and a jacket, if you have just a sweater on, a blouse on up against the back, it'll ground you just rather quickly. But if you put a sweater on, that's going to interfere with it a little bit. But you're still getting some ground no matter what. As long as you are sitting on that chair, you are close coupling with Earth's electric field, Earth's energy fields, and that's calming your sympathetic nervous system. And that's really good for meditation and those kind of things. But less is better. Less clothing is better. Easy way to answer in that one.
Karen is asking, is it okay to do yoga on the original single bed mat? Would it do any harm to the mat?
The original black, no, it wouldn't hurt the mat at all. Not a possibility.
People use all of our products in many different ways. Some people work with the universal mat, some people sleep with it. And when it comes to the bed mat, you could do the same thing, yeah. Patty is asking, does it matter where you put the mat on your bare skin? Does it ground the whole body regardless of where it is?
Okay. It will, if you have skin contact with the mat, you are effectively grounding the whole body. However, when you put it in your bed underneath of a sheet, if we're talking about a bed mat, then there are two things that will happen. One, you have a huge ground plane in your bed, and it's equalized with the earth, and so it's replicating going outdoors and laying barefoot or laying on the earth itself. So when you do that, it calms the calms the sympathetic nervous system, and it's just you're resonating with Earth's energy, Earth's frequencies when you are on it, even if you have a sheet and a blanket on it and a quilt, that is still there because that's like an electric field. Okay, the issue is when you have if you have lots of inflammatory pain and your health is very compromised, then more is better. So you want, it's like the blood in your body circulates once every 60 seconds. And that's pretty phenomenal when you think about it. But it's like if you have one hand grounded, then as the blood comes by that area, then it's going to pick up electrons and it's going to distribute them throughout the body once a minute. But if your whole body is grounded, depending on how much inflammation you have and so on, more is better. That's all I can say.
All right. Janine has said, I've been in the IT support business for over 30 years, and I have my own computer repair business now for 10. And I find that I'm always surrounded by electronic devices. I'm interested in how to use a multimeter to show the effects of earthing on the body. Suffice it to say, I never really learned how to use the multimeter for this subject. I've been earthing for over 2 months and it works so well. I just want to understand the science behind it.
Okay, being that you know how to use a multimeter, what you do is you connect the ground of the meter and set your meter to connect your ground, connect your your ground to a reference ground, and then set your meter to AC, millivolts AC, or volts if it's an auto ranging, and then just hold the tip of the red test probe between two fingers, and then just look at the meter. It'll read, what the AC induced body voltage is on your body. As you move closer to a lamp, it'll increase. Closer to a wall and where the wires are in the wall, it will increase. The further you move away from anything electrical, it will decrease. If you touch something that's grounded, then it will totally disappear, at least 95%. So for a much better way to learn a lot more about it, go to earthinginstitute.net and look up how to measure electric fields or how to use a voltmeter to measure body voltages. It's all there. There's quite detailed, and we've been using that for years, and it seems to work for everybody.
All right, and I will go ahead in just a few minutes here have that link to the earthinginstitute.net in the chat section here of the webinar on Zoom.
Cool.
Shirley has asked, when will your new products be available, especially the sandals?
I work around the clock trying to get the sandals done. It sounds really, really easy. But we've been working on it for a long, long time. Anyhow, I think we're going to have some samples in the market by, I'm hoping, July. Everything with COVID everything got pushed back a year and a half. Now we have the backlogs, and production manufacturing is really, really challenging right now. And but anyhow, we are working on that. We're going to try to get something in the market by July. And our pet beds, they should be ready to go next week, I hope. And other products, that's the only products that we're going to release right this next quarter. We have our new tester coming. We have
Yeah.
all of the universal, or the carbon mattress covers now.
Yep.
And yeah, that's where we are right now. We just keep working away on them.
Let's see, Patty, she asks, if your adrenals are exhausted, will earthing help build and heal them?
Well, I have to think about how that, first of all, you have to understand, how did my adrenals become exhausted? And usually it's because of overworking and stressing yourself out, and it could be just chronic stress from any number of sources for an extended period of time. So what happens when your adrenals are exhausted? What's happening is your sympathetic nervous system is forever working because it's sensing everything in the environment. The parasympathetic and the adrenals, the parasympathetic is operating off the adrenals, and it has limited resources to respond to fight or flight, chronic fight or flight, or just stress in general. And as your adrenals become exhausted, then the cortisol becomes more elevated, and eventually you have irritability, anxiety, oftentimes depression, and inflammation. So in order to reverse the effect of exhausted adrenals, you have to first of all consider, first of all, you got to put the fire out of inflammation. That's one of the best things that grounding does, is it stops the inflammation almost instantly. Then the second thing it does is it calms the sympathetic nervous system. So that takes the pressure off the adrenals. And then over a period of time, not overnight, but over a period of time, then your adrenals can restore. But you got to reduce the stress on the adrenals is what I'm trying to get at. Put the fire out, the inflammation. That's one of the things grounding does. The second thing that it does is it calms the sympathetic. But the most important thing that you do beyond that is you have to understand what's caused this in the first place and change your lifestyle or change your habits or try to reduce the things that are impacting the psychological and physiological things that are impacting your adrenals. Yes.
Linford says, this is a great question. After a major surgery, I would suspect you should wait until the basic healing has occurred before applying a patch to reduce inflammation. The blood thinning effect might not be wise until the basic healing has occurred. Am I on the right track?
No. Adam, where's the best way to go here? Blood thinning, if you are on blood thinners, grounding normalizes blood viscosity. And if you are on blood thinners because your blood is thick and sticky, then that's going to try to normalize your blood viscosity. If you're taking meds and doing grounding at time, the thing you have to worry about is thinning the blood too much. If you do thin the blood too much, then you'll bruise real quick, real easy, and these are things that you'll be noticeable. But if you're taking it for other reasons, there are disclaimers in the earthing book that talk about blood thinners and so on. If you're on Coumadin or blood thinners long term. But now, as far as surgery, I don't know enough about the surgery, but I know that if you have an open wound and you are ungrounded and you are sleeping in a normal bed with foam and all that, and carpets and static electricity and all those kind of things, you'll have a hot burning pain. And that's what I call the Vicodin pain, or where you take the heavy meds to reduce the pain. If you put a patch right next to it, that pain, that hot burning pain, will go away. It will disappear. It will disappear in minutes. And the reason is because when you have surgery and you're not grounded, then you have a lot of healing that's taking place. And as the healing is occurring, the neutrophils are coming over they're wrapping themselves around pathogens or damaged cells, and they're ripping electrons away, trying to reduce them in order to promote the healing response or to allow for healing. If you don't have enough free electrons in your body from ground, then those reactive oxygen species that are released by the neutrophils will steal electrons. The excess, they will steal electrons from the healthy tissue next to where the wound is. And that's what causes that hot burning pain. So when you have a patch or you're grounded, then that doesn't occur because the body's flooded with free electrons, especially in the area, and it instantly prevents the oxidation of healthy cells. And by reducing the damage to healthy cells, it reduces the pain. You will still have the normal, don't touch me and let me heal pain. You're still going to go through the normal healing process. And to give you a quick metaphor on that, when I was a kid, one time, and I've told this on the story a couple times online, but one winter we were out during calving season, and we were riding the herd, just checking on the herd, and we came across this mother cow that was sitting off to the side of the herd and way off, and she was standing there. We rode over to her, and a calf that it was laying there, and half of its intestines were kind of hanging out. And so we didn't know if it got caught on a barbed wire fence or if a coyote or something, whatever, usually a wolf or something, got into it. So, but anyhow, there wasn't anything we could do. So my dad just went over there and sewed the animal up with some leather and needle thread type stuff. And we couldn't take her back because it was too far away, and because of her intestines, we couldn't throw her over a saddle. So anyhow, we just left her there, and the mother stayed there and didn't think anything about it. There's nothing we could do. So a couple of weeks later, I noticed that this calf was up running around like nothing ever happened. And I remember my dad pushing the intestines in the stomach. I mean, his hands were dirty. I mean, it was all kinds of, there was no sanitation whatsoever, no vet, no antibiotics, nothing. And yet this animal healed up perfectly. And even then, when it was laying there, it wasn't bawling, it wasn't screaming, it wasn't, trauma in trauma. And so that's the first time I ever asked in my life, I said, how come humans have to go to the hospital and get an ambulance and all of these crazy things, where animals, they don't experience any of these things? And I didn't know that until, 60 years later when I started working, or maybe 50 years later when I started working on this, that indeed it's because of when you're ungrounded, you're short of electrons, and the neutrophils, if you don't reduce the reactive oxygen species instantly, then they're going to, in just milliseconds, they're going to attach to and steal an electron from a healthy tissue, damage it, and that sets off the fire of inflammation. And that is the hot burning pain that everybody needs Vicodin for.
Okay. Anne has an interesting question here, and I think we actually have something that addresses this at the Earthing Institute. My daughter has electric currents going through her body constantly. She is afraid the products will make her worse. I want her to go outside when it is warm to see if the earth will actually help her or not. However, she is about a block from the wire towers. Will the ground close to her home be full of more electricity so that she would be affected worse?
When hearing that electricity is going through the body, is that an assumption, or is that something's been measured? I mean, it's not possible for electricity to go through the body unless you have you're connected to a current, a live current on one side, and a neutral or a ground or a circuit on the other side, because that's the only way that electricity can flow through anything. So if a person is just there and they're experiencing what might seem like current or energy flowing through the body, then it can be from static electricity. I mean, if you have electricity on your body and you touch something, and it'll either give electrons or take electrons from you and ground you out. That's static electricity. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure I answer this correctly. So anyhow, this energy that's going through the body is, she could be electrically sensitive, like we were talking about earlier, and the adrenals could be exhausting, and the sympathetic is more when your adrenals are exhausted. When your adrenals are fine, and the sympathetic, it's like somebody who's not electrically sensitive. Their adrenals are working fine, because the adrenals sit there, and anytime you sense something in the environment, your parasympathetic will sense it, and you send a cue to the whole body, and it goes set up for fight or flight. But the adrenals, they release enough hormones to modulate and dampen that response from the sympathetic nervous system, so you have time during that to make that fight or flight decision, like a little bit of time when everything's okay. And so, but people who the adrenals are exhausted or burned out, then the parasympathetic is sitting there and pushing. Now you feel electric fields, you feel wind, you feel heat, you feel noises more intensified, touch, static electricity from touching a blanket. Everything in the world you become more sensitive to everything. The changing of the color on a TV set, just everything. So that could be what we're talking about. I mean, just that over response of the sympathetic nervous system spiking cortisol and so on. So in order to, now, as far as the cell towers outdoors are doing nothing with what we're talking about here. Now, when you go outdoors and put your bare feet on the earth, then you're going to equalize with the earth. The only way any current from the earth can go through your body, through your finger, and somewhere else in the world, you have to connect it to another wire that is somewhere connected to the earth down yonder. You have to have a circuit for energy to flow. So when you are, electric currents, when lightning hits, for instance, a spot on the earth, then oftentimes it's more often than not lightning going up from the earth. But anyhow, just an example, when lightning hits the earth, then it travels out equally in all distances from the point where it hit. And so every time it doubles in distance from where it hit, it loses 50% of its energy. So at 10 feet, it's 50% of whatever it was, and at 20 feet, it's 25%, and so on. So that's why lightning doesn't go for miles. It dissipates radially throughout the surface of the earth and reduces and does no damage. It can do damage if you are in the path. If lightning hits you first before it hits the earth, you've got a problem, whether you have shoes on or not, or whether you are grounded or not. But if you're grounded, it'll maybe a little better, because it'll flash over off times and not have to burn a hole through your shoes in order to get through to the earth. So I would recommend, don't do it at your house. Go to the park, go to the woods, go somewhere, go to, where there's a creek and some running water, go to a park, go someplace that's pleasant to be in nature and get grounded. Take the shoes off, sit, touch the trees, touch the rocks, take your shoes off, stick your feet in the water, and just get used to the idea of being grounded. Because if she does that, then what's going to happen? Her body's going to become flooded with free electrons. It's going to reduce a lot of the inflammation in her body. It's going to calm her sympathetic nervous system. Her circulation is going to improve. Her color is going to improve, and she's going to certainly feel different. But this is where you start. That's where I would start if I had a super sensitive situation. But I wouldn't worry so much about things I can't control. Can't control 5G. You can't control these things that are coming at us. The world is way down that road, and they're planning on 10G. They're not, but on the other hand, it's just really, really challenging to believe that 5G is going to come in and harm anybody. But that's I have 30 years background in the communications industry. I've worked with microwave half my life. I know too much about it. What will bother you with 5G is if you have exhausted your adrenals, then your sympathetic nervous system is more sensitive and it can push and you can feel things. You can feel electric fields. So the issue here is restoring the adrenals. Best way to restore the adrenals is reduce the inflammation, grounding, quiet the parasympathetic, grounding, and spend more time grounded. Back in nature, get back in nature. I hope I'm of service to this lady.
Interestingly, the very next question that popped up was from Teresa. And you sort of just touched on this, but maybe you can kind of drive the point home for her. Do you have any comments or knowledge of the potential impacts of increased ground to air lightning? Does it lessen or heighten the effects in terms of grounding?
Ground to air lightning, ground to sky.
Yeah, so does lightning, affect us grounding personally?
Okay, well, lightning is a very significant event. When you think of a human being and lightning, lightning is massive. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. It's massive. And if you are accidentally in the wrong spot at the wrong time, you have a problem. But lightning is not going to, if you are connected to the earth, I mean, if you have a ground, let's say you have a ground mat in your bed and you have it connected to the earth and it's connected to the electrical ground. Mm-hmm. Okay, the electrical ground has a ground rod going 8, 10, 12 feet in the earth. It is a real ground. And and then coming up the ground wire in your home, you equalize with the earth, the electrical potential of the earth. So and now the bed pad has, the cord going to a bed pad has a wimpy 100 K resistor. When I say wimpy, relative to a 1,000,000-volt lightning strike. So what would happen is with just the the hint of the lightning being in the area, it would burn the resistor. It would evaporate the cord that's going to your bed pad. So it's not going to come up the electrical ground system or hit some plumbing or whatever in the house and come down the system and go up the wire and electrify your bed pad. It's going to, the wire, this is 24 gauge tinsel wire. I mean, it's designed to evaporate. It in itself is a fuse, but it also has 100 K resistor in it so that it doesn't blow too easily or burn up too easily. So anyhow, the way lightning works is if there is a positive charge in the clouds, meaning you have a cloud, think of the top of the cloud being negative, the bottom of the cloud being positive, because the negative, so if you see lightning and it's coming out of the top of the cloud or the side of the cloud, it's negative electrons coming from the cloud going to the earth. On the other hand, if the cloud is, usually what happens when the earth is negative, then when molecules get separated from the earth, you have negative and positive, and you get up in the sky and you have separation of protons and electrons and so on. So anyhow, the negative earth pushes negative ions to the top of the cloud. They repel each other. So like the little red blood cells we talk about in our blood, they repel each other. And that's what thins blood. But so anyhow, so now you have to have enough, you have a positive charge on the bottom of the cloud. Now you have the earth has to well up. There has to be a welling up of enough electrons on the surface of the earth to reduce an equal amount of charge in the sky. You have to have an equal amount of opposite charge in order to neutralize or reduce a charge. So anyhow, these electrons have to well up, and that's why sometimes when you're outdoors, you can smell this ionic effect around you, before the lightning or before the storm comes in, gets real active. And that's the welling up of those electrons. So anyhow, what happens then, there's a fissure, and a plasma fissure, and then the electrons are going to go up or down, whichever, but they're going to, what you're seeing oftentimes is electrons going up the earth, and then it's spreading out throughout the clouds.
Mhm.
You'll have to see the lightning rolling. If you see just a single light coming down, then it can be a cloud to earth. It can be either in any given number of situations. So to be grounded, my theory, and again, if there's lightning in the area, you take all precautions. You don't mess with lightning. Go to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric websites and the government websites, and they tell you, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to stand under a tree, because the tree is not as conductive as you think it is. You are more conductive than the tree. The tree will attract it, and because you're more conductive, it'll jump from the tree to you and to the earth. So it's not good. If you're out in the open, seek shelter. Get indoors. That's what you want. The number one thing to do is be indoors. Well, with grounding like we're talking, you are indoors. That's the number one thing. But anyhow, there's nothing I can tell you that say that lightning is absolutely safe. It's not. It's massive. And but on the other hand, even there's very rarely do animals get killed by lightning. There's like 60, 70 deaths a year in the United States. That's Florida is one of the primary areas on the golf courses and the clubs and whatever, and on the peaks of mountains, because electrons like to go up to peaks.
Mhm.
You'll see more peaks on tops of mountains than you will in the valley, and so on. So, but anyhow, I sleep grounded. I don't take into consideration lightning, but I live in California and Nevada or wherever. We don't have a lot of lightning, but you do have intense lightning when it comes. But I can't tell you that it's safe. I can't tell you that it's not safe. I mean, you just have to do your own homework. And if you have any hesitation, then you unplug the ground cord at night on the nights when you know that there's going to be significant weather in the area.
Okay. Just to give everybody a reminder, I am not monitoring the chat section, so make sure you put your questions in the Q&A section. Should be at the bottom of your webinar screen. There's a little button that says Q&A, and that's where you can submit your questions to me. Celia is asking, is it beneficial to use more than one product at the same time?
I can only say one thing with grounding: more is better. And I know this from my background of 30 years in the communications industry. If you ground things and there's still a little bit of noise, you have to add ground. Well, you don't completely get rid of the noise. It's always the same. Add more ground. Add more ground. That's a common term in the communications industry. And if you don't want static, you want to make sure the lightning has a good path to ground. You want to make sure static electricity, there's enough copper in the wire to, and so on. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Using more than one product at a time, is that
beneficial? So a lot of people, I've worked with lots of people over the years. A lot of people, they will ground, they'll put the bed pad in and put it under the sheet, they'll sleep on it. It improves their sleep, but they still have some of the aches and pains. And these are usually the older people or people whose health is more compromised. And sometimes I say, sleep directly on it. A lot of them do. A lot of them, they do it because they automatically do it. The pillow, your hair is not conductive, but it is a semiconductor. So when you sleep on the pillow, you're reducing all the static electricity that you normally get with hair and cotton, and there's a lot of static electricity in your pillow and the contents of your pillow, and you don't even see it because it has to be 5,000 volts before you'll see the spark. But it can be. That's why everybody in the electrostatic discharge industry, or people who build chips, they're grounded because if you have 400 or 500 volts, you can blow a chip. Well, you would never recognize 1,000 volts of ESD charge on your body, but it's there all the time, and it's distributed equally on your body. It goes into your mouth, throughout your gastrointestinal system, into your respiratory system, and this does put stress on the body. It's not something many people talk about, but it's there. But so anyhow, grounding, you're trying to get back to nature. What you're trying to do is replicate living in nature. So if you were in nature, you'd be lying on the ground. I don't know what you'd be sleeping on. I mean, in a cave. We used to be barefoot. We used to grow and touch grounded things all the time, plants and making food and all of those kind of things. So more is better, but excess, I mean, if you have chronic pain, like a knee, for instance, a knee is blown out, you may want to use the patches on the knee or on the bottom of the foot, or in any number of given situations. You experiment with it. But the patches are more for acute situations. But on the other hand, if you have the bed pad, you're going to use patches only when you have those kind of situations, or getting them under control, or you want to reduce your healing time, putting patches near where you've had surgery or something, or an injury or trauma. That will speed up the healing process. So more is better, but when I say more, primarily, a single mat is good. A mat that covers the whole bed is really good. Adding a pillow to it is really good. But you kind of have to use your own good judgment. If you have pain in your body, if you are in recovery, if you're trying to recover from 30 years of life, of ungrounded life, it's not going to happen overnight. So more grounding is good. The grounding is not going to harm you. Grounding is 100% natural. It's the most natural thing on this planet that you can do. And it's the number one cause underlying most of these, the 85 most popular autoimmune diseases that started to take off in the 60s when we invented plastic shoes and plastic carpets. Yes.
Karen has said, my sister-in-law has suffered for years with intense migraines. I sent her a pillow cover and she feels it has helped, but she still has them occasionally. Would a large body band wrapped around her head help her further when she feels one coming on?
She might want to play with the patch. I don't know about the body band. I mean, I imagine it would work. I mean, she could wear it. You can do anything, but one thing I will always try to get across to people is when you have a migraine, there's an underlying situation. And you need to be mindful of that. And you need to at least your primary physician should be made aware of that. A lot of times, headaches are caused from fatigue, chronic fatigue, work environments, stressful environments, the same thing that exhausts adrenals, just living in a chronically elevated sympathetic state, or living in a fight or flight state, living where there's a lot of drama and a lot of trauma and all that kind of stuff. And so that taxes the body. And when the body is in too much stress, then the adrenals are exhausted. That puts stress on the body. You have inflammation. The immune system is trying to take care of the fire of the inflammation rather than doing all the things it's normally supposed to do. So sometimes you have to think about what's causing that, what's feeding that, what's promoting that migraine. I don't know. I mean, there can be hereditary things, genetic things, and so on. But generally speaking, most often they're lifestyle related. They're environmental. Something in your environment is contributing to your body's, stressing your body to the point that it's creating this event. So back up, reduce, go to the woods for a while, find some space away from everything and everybody, and ground out and start looking at your, the things that could be causing it and start experimenting with reducing those things.
Lori has asked, if you have tendinitis of the Achilles, where should you place the patch?
On the bottom of the foot.
All right. Christine asks, how does an auto seat mat get set up on the seat of a semi-truck? What is done to get grounded?
With the seat pad, there's a little coil cord that comes with it. And you can see this on the, I think, the earthing.com website. And you take that, there's a little alligator clip on the end of it. So you put the mat on the seat, and then you take the alligator clip and you take and put it underneath the seat and connect it to anything that's bare metal. Because the truck is itself a huge ground plane. It's metal, it's big, and it's also has a negative. It's connected to the negative side of a battery. So the battery keeps the static off of it and keeps the, So anyhow, it's just, I hope I answered that, just connected to any metal underneath the seat. And then the person is grounded when they're sitting there. And we've done measurements on it. You don't have the static electricity, you don't have because he's got inverters and all that kind of stuff in the cabs. And so it's really, really good.
Anne-Marie just watched the Earthing movie for the first time and felt such resonance. I was so inspired, deeply touched. I receive disability benefits for rheumatoid arthritis, and I don't have any earthing products yet. Can you recommend a simple, very cost-effective way to earth myself as I sleep? Thank you.
With arthritis, if I couldn't do it, is this before she gets anything or just?
She just saw the movie and she wants to start earthing when she sleeps, but she wants to know what's the most cost-effective product for her to get started with while she sleeps.
If it's chronic arthritis, then I would use patches near the site of trauma, where the inflammation is flaring, and you can sleep with them, sit with them when you're watching TV, and so on. That will help reduce the pain, the inflammation, and the pain, and so some stability can occur and the healing can begin. Then beyond that, the most important thing for arthritis is the patches, bar none. I would say get a universal, a universal mat that you can put your feet on during the day or sit on, worst case, sleep on, because it will help if you're using the patches at the same time. Arthritis is significant. You have to get it under control. Then you have to keep it under control. So, but I would slowly add as much grounding as you can. I would have a sleep mat. And when your arthritis is flaring, sleep on it, 100% ground. The pillowcase is fine. But arthritis usually depends on where it is. It's usually in the joints. So the most effective thing is patch on the hand for anything going on here, patch on the bottom of the foot for anything going on in the knees and in the hips and so on. You can put the patches anywhere you need. But keep in mind, there's one thing that's going on when the thing I like about the patches, you can put them in the hand or you can put them on the bottom of the feet. Your blood is circulating throughout your body once a minute. And we know from our studies and everything that as the blood passes by an area that has ground, electrons, then the electrons is grabbing the electrons and it's picking them up, and the blood is becoming more negatively charged, and it's becoming more less, can get in and out of the capillaries. It can reduce inflammation, oxidation, and so nothing can do that better than the patches. Other than standing or going outdoors where there's green grass, put your hands on the earth, put your bare feet on the earth, and just stay there until the arthritic flares subsides. And then, that's the only thing that works as good. But then I would add as much grounding as you can, but the universal mat and the patches are probably the two best things. Get one of those little starter kits. Get it all for a couple $100. You cannot go wrong with that if you have arthritis. It is the most important thing, but make sure the patch gets in it.
Wayne is asking, if you walk barefoot all the time and the soles of your feet get, very calloused and hard, can you still ground?
Yes. The bottom of your feet, even with calluses, is more conductive than any other part of your body. Yes. You can prove this with a voltmeter. I mean, just by putting a voltmeter, in your calluses and two parts of your feet. I mean, if you can read anything, then measure the resistance.
Leslie is asking if the main circuit breaker for a home is grounded.
The main circuit breaker is not grounded. The main circuit breaker for the home is, you have to realize that you have a circle in your home. There's a little can up on the pole, and it's got a little coil in it sitting next to a bigger coil, which is connected to the grid. So there's no connection between the power in your house and the grid. I mean, there's no flow of copper. I mean, there's no copper connection. So then the wire comes into your home and it's sitting there. It's called a step-down transformer. So here you may have 10,000 kilowatts, and here you have, 100 and however many watts. And so anyhow, what happens when there's a breaker? I mean, something is shorting out this circuit that's in your home, the power circuit, and it goes, that's your hot and your neutral on the electrical outlets. The wires on your devices, they have a short prong and a wider prong. The wider one is the neutral, the thinner one is the power. And anyhow, so if you have a short, then it'll trip the breaker. It'll heat up and trip the breaker. But the ground is not connected to any of it. The ground is independent of the electrical system, and it's a safety ground. I mean, it's electrons coming up and reducing a charge like static electricity or like the things we talk about, or it's a charge going down, but when it goes down to the earth, it's still going to go back somewhere and find its way back to that transformer. It has to. But yeah, but the safety in the ground is everywhere, but it doesn't go on and off. It's on all the time, whether the breaker is tripped or not.
Okay. So Alice submitted a question here, and she actually is asking 3 questions in one, and they're very good questions. So she's been using her bed pad and a pillowcase for 2 weeks now.
Yep.
And she loves how she's feeling. So her first question, should you unplug everything when not in use?
No, you're just connected to the earth. You're not using any power. There's no electricity coming through the grid. Earthing is not about electricity. Earthing is about equalizing the body with the earth, holding the body at earth potential, meaning that your body has a similar amount of electrons throughout the whole body as the earth does itself. And that's what prevents inflammation, reduces and prevents inflammation from occurring in your body. Can't have, I hope I said that right. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Her second question, can it help with chronic myeloid leukemia and diabetes?
Well, diabetes is an inflammation-related health disorder. In order to understand that, and a lot of people don't know that, just Google diabetes and inflammation. In the current literature, the first protocol is to reduce inflammation. Whatever you got to do, reduce the inflammation and clean up your diet and all those kind of things. And then the body will return to normal with diabetes. Diabetes is an environmental health disorder. Something you're doing is stressing your immune system sufficient that it can't maintain and function the body can't function as it's designed. So with diabetes, reduce inflammation. Yeah, it's majorly important for people with, I mean, it's like 50% of the population today can be diagnosed with pre or existing diabetes. That's outrageous. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's debilitating, and it's, you know, it doesn't get better if you don't stop the inflammation. You got to stop the inflammation because it's that fire that's causing so many of the problems. And a lot of the reason, a lot of people, you know, you have trauma in life, whatever, and loss, and you have emotions, and you begin to eat. That's what's feeding some of the diabetes. Then you don't exercise or don't get out and do the things you do because you're stressed or distressed. And again, it's all this emotions and sympathetic and parasympathetic. It's all related. It's all one thing. And so, but yeah, diabetes, you got to take it very serious. But earthing is very, very helpful. I mean, there's lots of stories in the earthing book. You can go to the Earthing Institute. I think there's a few papers there, theearthinginstitute.net. You can actually Google earthing and diabetes. I think there's lots of stories floating around out there now. Now, leukemia is a whole different story. Leukemia is, you know, there's something caused it to manifest. And I'm not too sure if it's an inflammation-related health disorder, but we have lots of experience with leukemia. Some of our close friends over the years have worked with us for years. Researchers and so on. One of them had severe leukemia. And the thing that was interesting, he lived many, many years beyond what they thought he would, because his white blood cell, the main thing about the grounding is it maintained his white blood cell count normal. And those who don't get grounded, their white blood cell continues to drop and drop, then they're more prone to infection and all these kind of things. Grounding, as far as my observations and what we've seen, it's really beneficial to prevent the inflammation or the loss of white blood cells. Because if you're losing white blood cells, that means you have so much inflammation, you don't have enough white blood cells to fight it, or your body can't produce enough of them. And again, I don't have all the answers. All I have is observations and experience, and working with the people that we've worked with over the last 20 years to experiment and try to capture the studies and everything that we did. I would highly recommend getting grounded, putting feet on the earth, butt in the dirt, hands, whatever. And when indoors, play with it. It depends on the severity, how advanced it is. There's a lot of issues, but the only thing you can do is experiment with grounding. It's an unknown science to a large degree when it comes to clinical application. So what you can do is the patches are the most important to play with when you have these significant health disorders, but just put them on. And what happens? The blood's going to normalize, the energy is going to shift in the body, circulation is going to improve, skin color is going to improve, all these things. It just go with it and learn, you know, let your body tell you what you need.
Her third question is, why do I get a shock when using my laptop? I have it sitting in a protective EMF shield.
Well, okay. The reason is because you're grounded, you're at earth potential, and this is probably an ungrounded Apple laptop, and they emit electric fields. If they're not grounded, they emit high level electric fields. And so these electric fields are causing the electrons on your body to wiggle back and forth at 60 times a second. So if you weren't grounded, you may not feel the effect, but the electrons in your body would be wiggling back and forth 60 times a second. There was a paper put out by the National Institute of Health Sciences was said that, EMFs create weak electric currents in the body. And when those weak electric currents are when you're ungrounded and you're sitting, like a laptop, then it'll sit there and cause your the electrons to move back and forth. So when you get grounded, then the Earth's electrons on the surface of your body, then the Earth pushes and pulls and takes that stress away from the body, but you can feel it sometimes. So if you have an EMF, no, you don't have, I don't, when the EMF device would have to be grounded to the Earth in order to be effective. If it's just a shield, it's not going to shield electric fields from an Apple computer. It's not possible. The new grounded Apple computers, they're fine, but a lot of these older ones and the laptops, and especially a laptop, don't ever use an Apple ungrounded laptop while it's being charged, because you'll just be electrifying your body. Unplug it, plug it up, charge it up, unplug it, then use it, or get a grounded charger. Did I answer?
Yeah. Jennifer is asking, would the use of electrodes placed directly upon sinus cavities be helpful for sinus inflammation and pain?
Yeah. If you, again, experiment. I can say yes, but I don't know the severity of it, and I don't know the cause of it. If it's pollen or mold, or something is causing this sinusitis, you have an infection, you have a bacterial infection, and it can be what's promoting it. It's either air quality in your home, it's the dust, the seasons, the pollens, the molds, all these things, these environmental things. So your body, when your immune system is 100%, it can deal with all those things. You can deal with allergies. You can deal with a lot of things. A lot of the grounding people, they don't have the allergies anymore. They just disappear. And that's because the immune system is no longer spending all the energy fighting the inflammation. It's now can go back to the normal, taking care of the needs of the body, which one of them, when you're attacked with allergens, the immune system will go clean them up before they cause all these problems. So, but you want to reduce the inflammation in your body. If you've got sinusitis, then you may have to go see a doc, and the nipah, all these things that are normal out there. But the grounding, sure, put it on. Your nose will start running. You'll experiment.
I'm going to skip down 2 questions here because I see Lori has also asked, can the patches create redness or irritation on the skin?
If you are allergic to the adhesives, they can. Usually that doesn't occur unless you've been using them for a very long time. And so what I recommend is, don't leave them, don't use them over and over on the same spot. Move them around just a little bit, an inch or 2 away, and then go to work seriously on what's causing that inflammation.
I know that if you, I personally have a sensitivity to the patches. I usually just always put them on the palms of my hands or the bottoms of my feet, and I have no issues. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good advice.
Cecilia and Allison are both asking pretty much the same question here. They want to know if grounding outside is much more powerful than using one of our products, or are they pretty equal?
Well, if you have to take, there's a lot of things you have to take into account. One, your body is not a copper wire. It's an aqueous, full of water, minerals, all these kind of things. And it has what they call dielectrics. Like you have a sheath that your nerves run in, and it prevents electricity from going in or out of the nerve. The electricity has to travel down the nerve or the pulse. But anyhow, the skin on your feet, the skin on your arms, the skin there's a lot of, sorry about that. I thought that was all. There's a lot of resistance, your skin resistance. So, but anyhow, the point is, then the earth itself is not a copper wire.
Mhm.
It's not conducting electricity like a lot of people think. So anyhow, there's a lot of ions on the earth. I mean, they're in the aqueous material of the earth, and then our body is somewhat similar. And so when we put them together, then the electrons will migrate back and forth and equalize, so that they're both equal. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Comparing using our product to grounding outside.
Okay. So when we connect to the ground rod to the earth, and then the wires coming up into the house, going throughout the whole house. So now you have pure copper. Copper is an excellent electrical conductor. Silver is better, gold's better, platinum, and so on. But silver, I mean, copper is the perfect electron conductor. So when you, and then the pad is made of carbon. Carbon is a metal, but again, it's not really a conductor. It's really equalizing with the earth, kind of like the earth itself. So now when you lay on it, you are electrically connected, one and the same with the earth. The carbon pad has a little bit of resistance, like 100K of resistance. Your clothing will have some resistance. Your skin will have a lot of resistance. But anyhow, as you lay there, then your body, there's a pull. Anytime there's positive charge, it's going to pull negative charge, and so you're going to equalize with the earth. So what we've tried to do with the grounding products is to identically simulate going outdoors and lying on the earth. The only thing we can't add to it is moisture, but you add the moisture by the perspiration that occurs as you lay in the bed. Your body's going to perspire a cup of water every night at least, and saturate your clothing, the sheets. And so it is similar, it's identical, but electrically and doing measurements, they would be identical.
Okay. Joe has a magnetic pad under the grounded bed cover. Does the magnetic pad have any effect on the conductivity of the bed cover?
None whatsoever.
Lenny is asking if horses can still be grounded with horseshoes on. I believe they are steel. Aluminum shoes are also available. If those would be better?
Well, if you take a horse and his hoof is like fingernail, same kind of material, and so you shave it off and nail a horseshoe into the hoof. So what you've done in many cases, if the horse is standing in a stall, well, I mean, they got rubber mats, whatever, but what you've done is you've lifted the frog, the soft part of the hoof. You've lifted it off the earth a little bit. And so wearing shoes, I mean, horseshoes, metal, it doesn't matter what metal they are. I mean, if they're metal, they're totally conductive. But what's conductive for the horse is, the soft spot of the hoof. And when you lift that up, then it doesn't get as much ground as it might. If the horse is just standing in a pasture with normal grass, it's probably okay. But oftentimes what they do with horses now is they put them in the barn. You've either got a concrete floor or you've got a rubber stall floor. A rubber, you're in trouble no matter what. All the horses, I mean, that are being housed in stalls with rubber mats, I mean, they are just like humans sleeping in a foam bed. On the concrete, they could be more well grounded, except with the steel shoes, the conductive part of the hoof is raised off the ground, the height of the of the horseshoe. All the stuff you wanted to know. I know a little bit about horses. So, but anyhow, it doesn't matter whether you use aluminum or what you have to be concerned about is keeping them in the pasture as much as possible and off rubber mats.
So this person is anonymous, but they are asking, when your book talks about people who have been able to reduce their thyroid medication after grounding, does this mean that their lab work showed that they needed a change, or did they just do it based on their symptoms? After grounding for a month, I've started having symptoms of over medication, but my labs show that my numbers are within range, so I'm not sure what to do.
One of the things that, that's one of the main things that we hear. People start grounding for a month, and then all of a sudden they go and have their test done, and their thyroid is starting to normalize. And so then the medication is causing either palpitations or other events. And so I don't know if going to the doc time of day, if you're sleeping grounded and your blood is normalizing and your hormones are starting to recover, and then you go through the day and go to the doc at noon or 2 in the afternoon, will you have shifted enough of your T3 or whatever to, I don't know, but if you're on thyroid meds and you start having heart palpitations, then obviously any doctor is going to say you need to start reducing them. You don't reduce them overnight. You reduce them by cutting them down by quarters and whatever. You come off of them slowly as as everything starts to come back up, the thyroid production. But I can't tell you, I'm not going to go against whatever your doctor tells you, but you need to yourself do some more research. Even though your readings are normal, that's with the meds, I'm assuming. Well, the meds are causing it to stay in form. So you just need to experiment. But if you are getting heart palpitations, then you do need to reduce. And I would go back to the doc and try to explain to him. And there are articles in the Earthing book. There's lots of reports on the Earthing Institute, I believe. And I think you can even go on Google and find grounding and thyroid. One of the number one things we hear.
Yeah. Cindy has been using the body band around her left thigh while sleeping. Is it okay to always wear it on the left thigh, or is it better to change it up to the right thigh every now and again?
Well, it depends on how long it takes the blood on the right side to get to the left side. I imagine it's probably okay, but I would, she has it on the left side for a reason. Mm-hmm. She started out that way. The only thing I would be very careful of when you sleep with these bands all night long is make sure you're not cutting off any circulation. Make sure they're loose, snug, but not affecting any circulation.
Okay. Margaret is asking, when I'm no longer grounded, does it cease healing or does it continue the process?
Okay. Well, when you ground, first of all, what you're doing is you're flooding the body with free electrons, and you're reducing inflammation. And as soon as that fire stops, then whatever is going, then your body is going to continue to absorb and charge up and hold electrons. Your body's kind of like a capacitor, like a little battery. And then as you go throughout the day, if you don't stay grounded, then you'll lose a lot of those electrons with metabolism and respiration and so on. I'm sorry, bring me back. I'm sorry.
once you stop grounding, sorry, I was looking at other questions,
Okay.
trying to figure out my next one. Once you start grounding and then you stop.
Okay,
Stop
so
in
now
the
what
process.
happens? So what happens now is you put the fire out long. Let's say you grounded yourself for 2 hours. Okay, you reduce the inflammation, and it's stopped, and pain's gone down. You still have lots of healing that has to occur, because being ungrounded for any period of time, there's work that has to be done. So anyhow, the immune system will immediately go to work. Your blood viscosity normalizes, the blood gets in and out of the capillaries, it reduces inflammation in the extremities. And, and so then all of a sudden now you go, so the immune system's coming back and it's doing its thing. It's rebuilding the adrenals. It's restoring the thyroid. It's doing all these things. And this is all immune system related. And so now you get up and you go to work, and you're going to go out there and fight the bear and do all the things that you have to do, and the stress that goes with that. And so if you're in a chronically elevated sympathetic state at work, meaning you're stressed and you're not happy and smiling and life is good, then you're putting stress on you're producing cortisol. The cortisol is whatever resources the adrenals had are being they're released to try to modulate that effect of the sympathetic. And if it goes too long, then it's going to exhaust the adrenal again. Then you go to bed at night, and then it'll start bringing the adrenal back up. But anyhow, the more you do this, the more you get grounded a little at a time. Each time you do get a little bit of restoration. The immune system gets to work properly for a period of time. And so the immune system doesn't lose all of that benefit. Your body, it's like I can go for probably 3 or 4 days, but again, keep in mind, I'm 77, but I can go 3 or 4 days and it probably doesn't bother me at all. But after 5 or 6 days, then I could really start getting my pains back. But I keep enough grounding to make sure that that doesn't happen. But you're losing me. I'm sorry. Where am I at?
Hold on here.
Yeah, basically the answer is each time you ground, you're going to put the fire out and your body's going to heal. If you do more grounding than less grounding, then your body's going to recover faster. But if you're doing 8 hours grounding, 16 hours of not grounding, then it's going to take a lot longer. If you do 12 hours of grounding, 12 hours of ungrounding, you're going to start winning. You're at least even. And if you can do 16 hours instead of and 8 hours of ungrounding, then you're going to win the war. You're going to gain your life back.
All right. Sorry, we have some complicated questions here, and I'm trying to organize them.
That's all right. I just need to stay focused.
Stacy here. Here's a quick one. Stacy is asking the best place to put the patches for someone with MS.
Well, it depends where the MS is. But I can tell you that I've had lots of experience with it, but get a patch. If it's in the arm and the hand, put a patch on the hand or the arm, and then you'll just feel it start to cool down. And again, there's damage. If the MS is severe, there's damage. And I have to be careful saying things because I don't know who I'm talking to and I don't know the history. But I've often told ladies with MS, I said, once I put this patch on your hand, you no longer have MS because your body's going to be flooded with free electrons. And then it's going to put out the fire and it's going to reduce the reactive oxygen species that are eating up the myelin sheath that's causing the MS. Now, when you take the patch off, it can come back. But the more you keep the patch on, then the body can heal and recover. But you have to stop. You have to stop that fire. You have to stop that inflammation. You have to stop the destruction of the myelin sheath. And the only way you can do that is to ground. I don't know of any other way. I've worked with not hundreds, but dozens of doctors. They don't know how to reduce the inflammation with MS. I mean, the oxidation of the myelin sheath. But put the patch closest to the area where you have a flare. I mean, if you have an oxidative flare, if it's massive MS, then just ground yourself any place and every place you can to stay grounded until you get well.
Roger says, I've been attempting to ground. My home is not grounded, so I'm grounding from the water line. However, I feel like something is coming up the line as I lay on the mat, a tingling, and then it gets uncomfortable. How can I get this to go away?
This house does not have a ground. It could have a lot of old knob and tube type wiring that would have extremely high electric fields. But that tingling that you're feeling, normally what happens, you might want to try a ground rod, because all electrical is bonded to the water lines somewhere near where they enter the home. So they're on the same, I mean, they're bonded together. Okay, so you may want to experiment with an electric field. You may want to experiment with reducing the amount of electrical wiring. I mean, electrical devices around your bed or close in your living room. And if that doesn't reduce it, then you may want to experiment with turning the circuit breaker off that's going to your bedroom. Get some DC lamps or whatever. So when you go to sleep at night, just turn the power off, not to the whole house, just to the bedroom, and see if you have to learn. Not in being there, if I were there, I could go through it in a half hour, give you all your answers. But not being there, I don't know. So, but normally what happens when you get grounded, if you have a lot of inflammation in your body, when you first get grounded, then you can feel energy coming into your body. You can actually feel it crawl up into your body. And what that is your body is trickle charging like a little battery, and it's equalizing with the earth. As soon as it fully equalizes with the earth, then that subsides and stops. It goes away. You don't feel it. And the next night you may not feel it, or you may for a few nights, then it goes away and it goes away. And it doesn't come back until you go on vacation, come home, and you haven't been grounded for a week, then you'll start feeling it again. But if it gets worse, that I can't tell you what it is. I know it's not electricity going through your body, because you are not in a circuit. You are just laying on a grounded mat that is connected to the earth. So you're laying on the earth. So I don't know, but I would experiment if it could be electric, older wiring with high energy electric fields, or too much electrical things around your bed. I don't know, but you just have to experiment until you find what works.
Okay. And this question is, does grounding interfere with chemo treatment?
Female?
Chemotherapy.
Oh, chemo. No, because basically you're going to go and you're going to get the chemo, and it's going to knock out a lot of the weak cells in your body. And that's going to happen rather quickly. The thing that we have found over the years, and we got lots of reports back, is people who take and ground after chemo. It's really, because the chemo creates lots of inflammation in your body. And it isn't the destruction of the weak cells itself, it's the damage it does to the healthy cells. And that's what creates the inflammation. So, but anyhow, by grounding after chemo, we have many people say they don't know how anybody could not ground, because it immediately you can feel a cooling effect come over the body, as it's been reported to me, and just takes the stress away, prevents the inflammation from the side effects from the chemo. But again, if you're going through those things, don't be afraid to ask your doctor, because if you can go outdoors and stand barefoot on the earth, it's okay to ground after chemo. If you can get chemo and go outdoors, it's better to ask your doctor that, can I go outdoors and sit on the barefoot on the ground with my hands and feet? And you'll say, sure, go out and get some sunlight. But anyhow, all of these things, you need to go slow, listen to your body. Grounding is not going to harm you. It's just going to reduce inflammation in your body and calm your nervous system. That's all it does.
Does wearing jewelry affect grounding?
Not that I'm aware of.
And do the grounding mats and mattress covers wear out?
Well, the reason you're probably asking that question is because you have bought the cotton and silver sheets, which some cases wear out in 6 weeks, in some cases they last 6 months, 18 months. But anyhow, the reason we have the new mats is because of that problem. We've designed the mats so that they could last, and they will last, the average life of a leatherette, a high-end leatherette couch, which is 10 years, 5 years. A couch will get beat up more than anything out there. But so anyhow, these are designed to last. We don't know how long they're going to last. We know they last 5 years. I'm going to tell you that they're going to last until you cut them and destroy them.
All right, it looks like we're about out of time. Thank you to everybody for watching. If you've been watching on YouTube or Facebook and you'd like to submit a question, make sure you go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter, and you will receive the link to join us here on Zoom so that you can submit a question. Again, I start at the top of the questions that are submitted and work my way down. I think today, the last question we asked was submitted right around 4 o'clock, so about an hour ago. So we have tons and tons of questions. So I can tell you the earlier you log in, the more likely it is that your question will be answered. We also have a couple of promotions going on right now. So check out our website for our Mother's Day sales. Get your mom good and grounded. There's nothing like the gift of being grounded for Mother's Day. And we also have our Earth Day special running for the entire month of April. That's 10% off your first order in the month of April. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, you will receive all the information on how to get that promo code. Thank you, Clint.
And maybe we can start doing this every night and get all the questions answered.
Well, I know it seems that once a week isn't enough. We are here every Monday night or Monday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, we'll have a good night. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.
Take care.